The Liberals have blocked the Conservatives' attempt to look into the so-called condo bailout in British Columbia.
This is your program. You announced it. So now we have some reasonable questions about why was it designed this way, who's going to benefit from it, who asked for it, how will you buy these condos, how will you sell them, how will you rent them, what's the total cost going to be?
We're definitely not going to give up, I could tell you that. We're going to keep on fighting for answers on behalf of Canadians. We're going to continue to demand accountability.
Conservative MPs on the Ethics Committee demanded an investigation after the federal government announced plans to support the British Columbia government in purchasing vacant condos. Federal Housing Minister Gregor Robertson wrote to that committee explaining the plan, writing, "The whole intent of this program is to bulk purchase unsold vacant units at below market rates. This will allow access to move-in ready units that can be turned into affordable housing cheaper and faster than it would be possible to build." We're going to start there with the power panel. We've got Cameron Ahmad, who is the head of communications to former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Rachel Siegel is a former director of policy in the Stephen Harper Conservative government. And here with me is Jordan Leichnitz, is a former NDP strategist. Good to see you all. Rachel, because you have the home field advantage in British Columbia, I want to start with you on this. No money has changed hands, the program isn't fully designed, and this is David Eby's idea, right? This is a provincial program. So why is this such a big issue for the Ethics Committee here in Ottawa?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is an absolute mess, and we know that the Prime Minister came out and said so, and David Eby has backpedaled on this program as well since being announced. But, you know, with that statement that you read from the Minister, this isn't a question about speed. This is a question about benefit and who this program would benefit. The free market, as we know, is what Conservatives are arguing for here. They're saying that in order that if just left alone, the price of these houses would come down substantially on their own. There's no need for the government intervention here. And it's disappointing to see that the Liberals shut down this debate. I think Aaron Gunn has been very clear, the Conservative Member of Parliament from the island here, that Conservatives just want answers, but more importantly, British Columbians and Canadians just want answers as to why this program was announced with a price tag, with numbers, and yet then backtracked and they said, oh, actually, nothing's been negotiated. So there's a lot of questions, outstanding questions, and you know, I'll echo what Aaron said. They really are just trying to get those answers for Canadians with a price tag of $145 billion.
145 million. 145 million from the federal government, $14 billion from the province. So Cameron, correct. Look, all right, look, 145 million, still a lot of money. So you do want some explanation on that, but it seems if they're hunting for answers, shouldn't the hunt be happening in Victoria? Like David Eby's running this thing, right?
Yeah, primarily. I mean, the share of the government's investment is fairly small when you look at the entire picture.
It's 10%.
But of course it is. Yeah, it's of course it's still a huge amount of money. And so yes, it's not just Conservatives. There are other housing advocates and experts in BC who have asked for more information. That's a part of it. But I think the other part of it, the whole committee investigation, is to distract the government from what it actually wants to talk about. So I'm not surprised that the government would seek to put an end to it. I think what the Prime Minister and his team are juggling with here is an attempt to get an enormous amount of housing built to solve a huge supply shortage problem that we have in this country, and make announcements to show progress and show that, you know, thousands upon thousands of new units are being made available. And part of that plan is to convert vacant lots, buy them under market prices, and then turn them into housing that people can actually use. And as I understand, some of these units are even going to be turned into rent to own, so people who could never own a home in a market like BC could potentially own one under plans like this. What they're also juggling with the speed piece is trying to put forward all these announcements without necessarily having all the answers ready. And I think in this case, they probably would have been better served if they had put all the details forward, answered all these questions preemptively, so that they could, you know, avoid this type of problem in the aftermath.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan, look, I think it's pretty clear this was a comms mess. Like, I don't know if it was a Gregor Robertson problem, but when the Prime Minister says this has been poorly done, it became a Gregor Robertson problem, at least on the federal side. But, you know, moving past sort of the communications, on its face, I mean, is this a corporate bailout or is this bargain hunting?
Well, I think to what Ahmed was saying, the urgent thing that most Canadians understand is that most people are struggling to afford housing. So there is going to be a variety of tools on the table to meet that need. I think it's fair to question whether this is the right tool, and there's going to be a lot of debate about that. Now that details are out, people can fairly assess the program. So when it was first announced, it wasn't clear, for example, at what rate, like what price was going to be paid for these condos. Now we know from Premier Eby that they're going to be buying these below construction cost. Okay, so that answers some of those questions. So now there's more details out and people can evaluate whether the program is good value for money. But at the end of the day, this was unrolled. The communications, I think, are actually central to why this remains a problem for the government. This is a complicated program, and condo developers are not sympathetic characters. So when there is...
In the Lower Mainland?
In the Lower Mainland,
I'm
there's...
shocked.
Yeah, it's shocking. People may not view them as people who need assistance. So I think that the real, if any crimes committed here was really communications malpractice here, both from the BC government and from the federal government, that they weren't able to quickly and articulately answer some of those obvious questions that were going to come out. Because at the end of the day, they allowed an impression to be hung out there that the people who were going to benefit from this primarily were developers, when if you actually look at the program, that's not really the case. What they're talking about is buying these condos that are primarily outside of Vancouver itself in order to quickly get those to people who need them for housing purposes. And I think that's a laudable goal. Do I think this is the very best pinnacle of affordable housing policy? Absolutely not. But when we're in the crisis that we're in, I think it's fair to say we need to look at all the different tools on the table. But the way it was communicated did leave a huge opening.
Yeah, and it was interesting, Rachel, that David Eby did sort of suggest in one of the many press conferences where he's had to take questions on this, that it was the feds who wanted to go fast with it before they were kind of ready at the provincial level, right? So it's kind of a problem of your own making. But, before the majority, Rachel, the Conservatives would have been able to do this at committee. And now they can't. This is an interesting moment where sort of the scandal hunting is blocked by the presence of a majority government.
Yeah, and just on Jordan's points, I mean, when you say that you're going to buy these below construction value, I mean, what does that mean? People want to know what that price tag is. And so it's fair for the Conservatives to say, we want to come back to Ottawa in the middle of the summer and have this discussion and clearly understand what the intention of this program is and what it's going to cost taxpayers. On the British Columbia side, I mean, David Eby is on an uphill battle out here with this because of the relationship with a lot of municipalities who have these targets, these building targets that are still applying to them, and where this money is going to come from out of the provincial coffers. Part of this is going to come from a decision that was made in February to pull back on affordable housing, funding affordable housing, and mayors and city councillors are pushing back on that, rightfully so, saying we need resources, we need water and sewage, and there's other priorities that we have here than bailing out developers. So British Columbia, although Eby is trying to push this onto the Prime Minister, he's not having an easy ride out here selling this either. But
Cameron, is it a bailout if the developers are being forced to sell a distressed asset at below the cost of construction? Because by definition, that means they're taking a loss. I mean, we don't know until we see what it all looks like, but I guess it bails them out a little bit, but they still take a real hit on the balance sheet with it.
Yeah, most likely. And now the government's in a position where it's going to want to release all the information as quickly as it can so that it can neutralize these arguments. Because of course that's not the intention of the government's, the Prime Minister's massive plan to address the housing crisis. The intention is to increase supply, get more people in homes, and try and think of innovative, in some cases, as he said, radical ways to do that. And part of that includes buying vacant lots so that people can live in them. And again, I think what he's dealing with is trying to work at scale and speed in solving a crisis that has not had a solution for a very long time, despite previous governments trying to address it. And I think the risk that the longer-term risk for the Conservatives, while they may have a short-term win here in criticizing this deal or this announcement, is that they're just saying do nothing. Our solution to the housing crisis is to do nothing. because that's what it kind of sounds like.
Well, Jordan, sorry. I thought you had,
No, go ahead.
No, Jordan, I just wonder then if that's maybe where this goes, because the other thing David Eby has said, as he's pressed on this constantly, is like, we may not do this. We don't have to do this, right? They floated it out there as an option, but if the heat gets too high, they might just say, forget it, it's not worth it.
Yeah, for sure. But I think this really is a story about a gap that the federal government sees in their own communications around housing affordability. Gregor Robertson has not been an effective communicator on this file. And the government has some factual problems with their plan. They're cutting housing funding by almost half. Parliamentary Budget Officer has delved into the numbers in the Building Canada Homes Plan, and it's only going to increase housing stock by about 2%. So their murky plan on this is not delivering in terms of actual affordable homes that people are going to be able to get to anytime soon. So they do have a problem on this file, and I think that this is maybe a cautionary tale about trying to rush through some solutions that were more maybe communications and announcement focused rather than actually making this a priority and getting to the heart of the issue.